Hey there, Streakers. It's been a hot minute. Have you ever wondered where that phrase comes from? A hot minute? I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Anyway, it's been a hot minute since I've been on the Streakin podcast. I had a massive amount of travel this last week and found that it was a little bit difficult to even record the podcast, simply for the reason that when I got to the place where I needed to record, I was so dead dog tired. I thought, I can't do this. Thus, I haven't sent it as a streak yet, and I talked with you a little bit about that and have continued to talk to you about that. I'm Jeff Downs. This is a Streaking podcast, and I'm excited to talk with you today about a couple of different topics. One, streaking while traveling, why it's important, and two, well, a streaker found out an important lesson that I'd like to share with you. Let's go into first of all and talk about streaking while traveling. You know, this is something that I've thought about long and hard because in my life, over the last 12 years, I have traveled pretty much Monday through Thursday. I say over the last 12 years, but let me modify that just a little bit. Up to the pandemic, I traveled every day for, I guess, up to the pandemic, that would have been 10 years, Monday through Thursday. And that was pretty much every week, unless there was holidays or things like that. But for the most part, I would say out of 52 weeks in the year, I was probably traveling 30 to 40 of them in the year. And if you're thinking right now that Jamie is a saint because she had at home all 7 children and she was the chief household officer, you're exactly right. In fact, a lot of people have asked me, how does that work? And I said, here's how it works. When I get home, I become the executive assistant, and Jamie tells me what it is I can do in order to help move forward the family or to take care of one child or another. That's how it's worked, and she is phenomenal at really guiding, directing, and leading our household. And both of us together, you know, we decided really early on when we first got married that if we were going to have a big family, which we both wanted a lot of children. We didn't think 7 children, but that's what we ended up with. We decided early on that if we were going to have that many children, that one of us would stay home and one of us would go out and provide the income to manage this large family. As we decided that I would go ahead and do the income side and she would lead and be the household side. And together, we worked together in those roles and responsibilities for 32 years now. And it's worked really well. And she is absolutely phenomenal. So when I was traveling a lot, I would be calling home and talking with the kids and everything else. She was managing day-to-day operations here, and I was managing day-to-day operations with my employment. As I have traveled, I have learned that being consistent on the road is a whole different ballgame. And in fact, it's one of the areas where I developed, and Jamie and I talked about this whole idea of laughably simple. The law number one, making an activity laughably simple so that you can do it every day, is critical to success. And it's because of all the different experiences that we've had in managing our household, managing the income, travel, and so forth. What we both recognized very early on is that if consecutiveness was the key, if we wanted to be just getting it done, the whole consecutiveness, we wanted to get it done, then what we needed to do was make it so laughably simple that there was no reason not to do it, or the brain couldn't come up with the excuse to not do it. When I'm traveling, there are points and places and times where I fit my streaks in. So for example, yesterday our meetings ended at about noon, and my flight wasn't until 8 o'clock at night. So I had from noon to 8 o'clock to finish up some work that I needed to get done and also to complete my streaks. What typically happens when I'm traveling is after meetings, I'm tired. I don't want to do anything other than just veg out, watch a show, scroll through YouTube shorts, look at reels, check out TikTok, whatever it is, that's what I want to do. And that's what my brain is telling me I want to do because I don't want to expend any energy. As you work with streaking, you recognize that a lot of what you're trying to do is overcome the mental blocks that come in place. And they're not, I guess they are mental blocks, but it's also the the energy block. It's oh, you're too tired to do this. Thinking about any of this makes it difficult. So, for example, if I had a streak to read a chapter in a book after my meetings that I had yesterday, for me, that would be very difficult. My brain would be telling me, you have no reserve for that. Don't even attempt it. But because my streak is to read at least one paragraph in a book, then what happens is I talk to myself and I have this little conversation where I say, Jeff, you could do this. There's no reason not to do it. All you have to do is read a paragraph. And so I pull the book out or pull the book up. I usually have my iPad with me and I'll check and I'll open up. Right now I'm reading Stephen M. R. Covey's Speed of Trust, and I'll read a paragraph. That paragraph will probably propel me to another paragraph. And most of the time, I will read about a page and a half, something like that. Or if something interests me, I'll get going. What is interesting is that tiredness, that brain drain, that voice that says, you're too tired to do this, your eyelids are heavy, you're feeling what it is overcome by the simplicity of the task. It's so simple, there's no reason not to do it. Once I've completed it, and there are times where I will read just a paragraph, I'll go to the next streak and say, well, I can write at least one sentence. And that's what I'll do. Because my brain is, and I don't know what it is, my natural response, whatever. I sound like, my brain is an entity unto itself. And sometimes I feel that it is. It's this entity that just does its own thing. And I have to tell it, no, I'm going to do this. It's like this fight back and forth. What you do is make it so that you don't give yourself a lot of resistance as to completing or performing the task or the activity. Recently, we did a study on the streaks that are kept within the Streaking app. And in this study, it wasn't a scientific study. In other words, we didn't have control groups and we didn't have everything in it that you would say as a scientific study. It was an informal study of streaks in the Streaking app and what streaks are broke more often than other streaks. So you look at some streaks and say, okay, how long did they keep that? When did it break? And then different ones and ask the same question. Here's what we found, and it's an interesting one, is those who had physical streaks, exercise, running, lifting, sit-ups, push-ups, all of those are in there, broke them more often than those who had, like, for example, a writing streak, write at least one sentence in a journal, write or read at least a paragraph, or read every day, just even read every day. And the question that we asked is why? Why is the physical streaks being broken, whereas the intellectual streaks or the cognitive streaks, and there are even spiritual streaks that were kept for a long time? And here's one of the preliminary findings that we saw. When people set a physical streak, they ultimately set it too hard because they want to accomplish the exercise, whatever it is, quickly. They want the big bang for the buck, or if I'm not really going after it, then I'm really not making a difference in my life. You're not looking at the long term. You're not looking at what's necessary to keep the physical fitness going for a long time. And what happens is you set it so hard. For example, I saw a streak just today that was posted, I'm going to do at least 100 sit-ups every day. Now, if that person is a physical fitness genius guru, has been doing it forever, I'd say that might be laughably simple for them. For most of us, it is not laughably simple, and we haven't even built up the consecutive muscle necessary to be able to make it laughably simple. So when we are looking at it, the physical streaks were getting broken because they were so hard to do that people break those streaks. Shifting your focus, putting it in a place where you're thinking about the consecutiveness of the activity is more critical and more important than thinking of the difficulty of the activity. Because if you think of the simpleness of the activity and you are able to overcome the brain's natural rejection response, what you're then able to do is actually get to the place where you could do 100 sit-ups a day, or run or walk every day, or you name it, physical activity. But isn't it interesting that when people set up a physical streak, they set it up too hard, and therefore it breaks more often. And here's the third thing that happens: they get discouraged and don't start the streak. Because that's the other thing that we are looking at is, do they start the streak again? And a lot of people in the physical realm don't. They don't start the streak again. As we looked at those streaks that were set intellectually, and there are some in between here, but the intellectual streaks, the ones where people were working to either write in a journal or write a sentence in a book or to read, they set them simple enough that they could be done, and therefore they kept that streak alive longer and built up their consecutive muscle. What we found is that those individuals who had those streaks were then able to keep other streaks alive. And this is all very fascinating information about human behavior. Now, I told you I had a story about a particular streaker that Jamie, she had a conversation with this streaker. I won't reveal the streaker's identity, and I won't even go into what streaks they have, just to stay completely anonymous. But this is a real situation that happened. And I want to see if it appeals to you. As you think about this in your own life, this situation may have happened to you as well. So this streaker, this individual, starts streaking, picks out 3 or 4 different activities that they're going to do on a daily basis, and they start doing them. As they do them, recording what was happening, how it was happening, posting a little bit in the app, sharing some of the experiences that are happening, goes along, and this individual achieves 60 days, 70 days, 90 days, 100 days, 150 days. Really gets it out there, 300 and some odd days where this streak was kept alive. At one point, in 360, 70 days, whatever it is, this individual said to themselves, you know what? I think I got this. I got these activities. This is not going to be a problem. I've got this. I don't need to keep track of it anymore. So stopped keeping track of the streak. Individual was not motivated by the numbers, not motivated by how long you keep the streak alive. Just thought that, you know what, this is a great little device or tool that allows me to be able to see how I'm doing along the way. Fast forward now, so after 370 days, doesn't keep track of or mark that particular activity was completed for the day. And now this individual is removed from those activities by 3 or 4 months. And comes to a particular point where evaluating what it is, they got to a point, this individual got to a point where the evaluation was, there was things that were happening in the day that were kind of tough and difficult. And as this individual thought about the different, what they had done, 370 days, the 370-day streak, and then what they had given up 3 or 4 months ago, what they recognized is that the activities that were that was keeping this individual energized and moving forward the individual wasn't actually doing them anymore. And I'm purposely avoiding any pronouns because I don't want to reveal the person's identity in any way whatsoever. What this individual found is that marking the activity every day ensured that they were doing the activity, which meant that they were getting the benefit from the activity that they had originally wanted in the first place. What this proved was that doing something repetitively for 300 and some odd days or whatever did not become automatic, even though they thought it would. And this is part of the problem with thinking that habits are going to be the thing that give you the growth mechanism that you need to move forward. They're just not. Habits will give you the basic maintenance so that when you're writing the sentence, you're not thinking about how to write. You're not thinking about how to type. You're actually, the brain is able to comprehend and put the cognitive resources toward what it is you're going to write on that sentence. This is the true breakthrough. I was speaking with a group a little while ago, and I had brought up this whole idea that habits are a hoax. And what is the hoax? The hoax is that you can prove automatically without thinking about it, without being deliberate or intentional, and it's just not true. I tried it. I tried it for many, many years, and I was ultimately frustrated that I couldn't do it. Now, habits are alluring because if I can take things and make them automatic, then it'd be great. Then when I travel, like what I started this conversation with, then when I travel, I don't have to worry about it because these things are just going to happen. When in actuality, they don't. And when they don't, I start losing them. And when I start losing them, I lose the things that I was motivated, energized, and excited by. And when I don't have those motivating, energizing things, I get drained and drained more and more and more. My thoughts become scattered. When I have a record that I have been doing this activity, reading, writing, running, exercising, practicing, making sure that I'm connecting with people, with my colleagues, with friends, with family, all of these things is intentional, deliberate activities that I am tracking, that I'm doing every single day. This is what gets you where you want to go. It makes you the person that you want to be. If you leave it to automatic, it won't happen, even though it's highly alluring. Highly alluring. Streaking while traveling gives me the intentional way to between that I'm done with my meeting and the flight, I have activities that I'm going to do that will allow me to become the person I want to be. And we find these all over the place. I mean, there are different times, different places where we are completing, and I say we, Jamie and I, me individually as well, where we're completing our streaks. We've completed streaks while walking and hiking in the mountains of Colorado and on the beaches of Costa Rica. We've completed streaks when it's been 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. We've completed streaks when we've been waiting in line at In-N-Out Burger or when we've just been sitting around and talking as a family at night. All of these times, what we find is that there are opportunities to complete streaks. There's sometimes, have you heard or have you made the excuse for yourself? I've made the excuse where I just don't have time. I don't have time to do that. I'm so busy. There's so many things that I have to do. And I used that excuse for many, many years. But the reason I use that excuse is because I didn't have time to do it big, bold, beautiful, fantastic. I only had time to do it very small and simple. But I didn't think that small and simple made a difference. And honestly, it doesn't if you only do it once. But if you do it every day in a row, it makes a massive amount of difference. There's huge opportunities that present themselves because you've been doing it once every day. That is streaking while traveling, and also the streaker who had the experience where I gave up the streaks and realized I wasn't doing what I thought and what I said I was doing. I was doing it so inconsistently, or I didn't even know when I was doing it. I realized I need to be on this. I have to set streaks. I've got to be deliberate and intentional. As you're deliberate and intentional, you will start to see opportunities in your life to plan your life a little bit differently. As you're intentional about how you use a streak and when that streak is, it gives you the opportunity to plan differently and to evaluate. You're not just relying on the, whatever comes to me naturally, because honestly, the naturalness in me does not want to improve and grow. Quoted in our meeting was, whenever you're uncomfortable, you're growing. This is especially true when you're streaking, but it doesn't have to be so uncomfortable that you don't want to do it. You could just make it somewhat uncomfortable. In other words, simple. There's another portion of streaking that I've thought a lot about, and it's something that I wanted to get your thoughts and feelings about. And the other thing was this. Simple does not necessarily mean easy Now, what in the world do I mean by that? Because if I set up something that's laughably simple, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy to do. Now, how in the world does that make sense? Here's some of the thoughts that I had, and I'd be curious as to yours. And feel free, reach out to me anytime, Jeffrey, Jefffery, at thestreakingapp.com, Jeffrey, Jefffery, at thestreakingapp.com, and let me know your thoughts, or in the Streaking app itself. Simple is not necessarily easy. Here's what I mean. It's simple to write a sentence. It's not necessarily easy. It's simple to read a paragraph. It's not easy. The reason I make that differentiation between simple and easy is because no matter what, every form of growth, be it small and simple, is going to require some level of energy or effort. And that level of energy or effort, if you think on it, is the conscious choice. It's to make a decision. And when you are able to have something, a device like a streak, that gives you a framework by which you can make that decision, where the decision to do it is the hard part. And if I make the activity simple enough, then that decision is not as hard, but it's always going to require some amount of work and energy. Also, simple, not being necessarily easy, as a day goes on and my energy is depleted, the simplicity of the task does not necessarily get easier as the day goes on. It actually gets harder because my energy reserves are going down. Now, there are some streaks that I reserve for the evening, and I make them as simple as I can so that when I think on them, I can do them. When you set up something that's simple, don't fool yourself into thinking that it will be easy, because the consecutive nature of a streak requires some amount of effort, and you're building up that strength through time. As you build up that strength through time, now you might be able to increase the task's difficulty, if you will. I'm writing a paragraph, if that were the case. I'm not doing that, but if that were the case. I have tried actually a streak, and I did a streak for, I think I had a streak to write at least 500 words every day, and I kept that streak alive for 211 days. I need to go back and look in our archives to see how many days. I think it was 211. At the end of 211 days, I retired that streak, recognizing I kept my sentence writing streak alive and have kept that alive, and I'm in the 2000s of the sentence writing streak. But the reason I stopped the 500 words is because I didn't feel that it was really serving the purpose that I wanted it to be. I was still writing a lot, but it wasn't serving its purpose. It was too hard to do. It was let's call it simplicity and complexity. Maybe it was too complex. There were too many things on which I was putting pressure on myself to do. But I keep my I keep my writing at least one sentence streak alive, and that's been great, because there are some days where I'll write 500 words, other days where I'll write more than that or less than that. Whatever it is, I'm writing every single day. And to be a writer, that's what you want to do. The simpleness of the task gives you the ability to keep the streak alive. And why do you want to do that? Because it will ultimately help you become who you want to be. Streakers, this week has just given me another full confirmation that streaking really does work. And it's something that helps me to remain consistent. There are so many books in leadership and personal life and whatever it is that we strive to do that are asking us to be consistent. And if we are taking that to heart, to be consistent means that we're doing something every day, every week, or every month, and you set up a streak to make that happen. As you go about your streaking journey, remember that the consecutiveness of the activity will get you the intensity and the results that you desire. As Ozan Varol says in his book, Think Like a Rocket Scientist, the mark of anyone that has done anything extraordinary is the input that they do, not the accomplishment or the output. Even though that gets all the glitz, all the glamour, all the attention, the output gets all that, it's the input that was critical that led up to that output. Have a fantastic weekend, Streakers. I'll be talking to you tomorrow on Saturday. Hopefully you have a great, great weekend. If you have any questions, reach out to me via email. Download the Streakin app at the Apple App Store. By the way, getting a great new upgrade coming up very soon to the Streakin app. Streaks page redesigned and made even easier to use. And I do use the word easy on purpose. Also, the social media feed gets an upgrade and it looks fantastic. I'll just have to hats off to Talon and the developers. They've been working on this for quite some time and it's going to be phenomenal. A lot of other upgrades are in the works and planned. Those two coming right away. Check them out we'll let you know when they come and you'll be able to look at them. But download the Streakin app via Apple App Store or Google Play. Get the book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold. You can also download it via Audible. It's also available in ebooks. However you want to do it, it's there, it's available. Download the book. Until we talk again, keep streaking.